Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, how are we doing today?
Doing all right, man. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. This was a lot of fun.
We had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving as well. But let's get right to it with our weekly recap of this past Thanksgiving weekend, starting with the Thanksgiving games, the 1 o'clock game, a really good game between the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions in a 28-25 Buffalo victory. Came out right at the end, but man, this was a good game to watch.
It was definitely a good game to watch, but there was a couple of things to watch out for. It's become very obvious that Josh Allen no longer has the long ball. That injury is really starting to hinder his performance on the field, and Detroit is electric. That is one word to describe them. They are electric, and they are fun to watch.
They are a electrifying team, and I think that's the best way to describe it. They are such an entertaining team to watch. But let's move on to the mid game on Thanksgiving. Another great game to watch between the Cowboys and Giants. Cowboys coming away with a win, 28-20. But man, whew, that Dallas defense is for real.
That Dallas defense is for real, but I got to give a shout out to the Giants, Mr. Thibodeau. I've been watching him pretty closely all year, man. He's pretty savage when it comes to what he does. He's going to be one of the top defenders in the league next year. You watch.
Hey, you love to see young pass rushers do their thing.
Love it.
Man, this was a good game to watch and a good win for the Cowboys. They take second within their division in the NFC East. So let's move on to the last game on Thanksgiving between the Minnesota Vikings and the New England Patriots in a very high-scoring game, a lot higher than we anticipated. But 33-26 was the final, and Minnesota coming out on top. Tell me, how far can Minnesota go in the playoffs?
It depends on how many more times Kirk Cousins can win at night. But for now, let's take this one with a grain of salt. Kirk Cousins got out of prime time with a win against Bill Belichick.
He got his third win in prime time.
So, that's so ridiculous. 3 wins in
3-9
his career in prime time. But one of them's now against Bill Belichick, so that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. And hey, we all wondering how far can the Vikings go in the playoffs, but I'm also wondering how far can the Dolphins go in the playoffs, because they got a win over the Houston Texans 30-13. It wasn't even close.
No, it wasn't close. Miami and Minnesota alike, I see them both having pretty deep playoff runs this year. Miami is potential AFC Championship caliber. They are primed and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see them in the playoffs.
Oh, man. Dolphins are going to be great in the playoffs. But we had another playoff game. And this one felt like a playoff game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tennessee Titans in a 20-16 low-scoring affair. But it was a really tough outing. Bengals ultimately came away with the win. But this is how the Titans like it. They like it close. They like it low-scoring. They like it physical.
Well, this should feel like a playoff game because it's a playoff rematch from last year.
Exactly.
Since he made off and won that game, but got to remember last year Tennessee sacked Joe Burrow 9 times last year. This year it was a little different now that they have the quote-unquote insurance policy. But again, this is a playoff caliber, 2 playoff caliber teams, one of which is still primed and ready for the Super Bowl. Cincinnati's still a Super Bowl team, and it's not hard to see.
Yeah, Cincinnati is scary, and it's just true. It's just very true. But we're going to talk more about the Bengals later on in this episode because they have a great matchup against the Chiefs.
Yes, they do.
So we're going to get right into that game. But let's go on with some more games this past Sunday. Again, with the Carolina Panthers over the Denver Broncos, 23-10. Man, Denver's just looking really bad this year.
Yeah, shout out to Sam Darnold on his debut of the year, coming out with a good victory. And the Denver Broncos, it is painful to know that you lost to Sam Darnold by 2 possessions. My goodness.
The game wasn't even as close as the score even predicted.
It was an outmatch.
It was all Carolina all day.
Yeah.
But let's move on to another team that just said today is our day. The New York Jets getting it done with Mike White, 31-10 over the Bears. Good win, but the Bears do have a pretty bad defense. But the Jets have a very tough road ahead of them. Their schedule is not easy, and they have to play the Minnesota Vikings this coming week. So the Jets have a really tough road ahead of them, but they still can make the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's interesting to think that they can still make the playoffs. And it's funny to me that a backup quarterback is coming in and being embraced more than your paid rookie that you drafted. You are supposed to be endorsing this guy, but the team wants this kid. Almost like Washington with Taylor Heineke.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. The since Taylor Heineke started, he's 6-1 this year. My God, the
backups this year, man.
Washington is getting it done under Taylor Heineke, and this past Sunday they got a win over the Atlanta Falcons, 19-13. But Washington looks good. They look like a playoff team.
They could be. They could be that one team that sneaks in, gets that second wild card spot.
Could you imagine the NFC East 3 teams make it to the playoffs?
Compared to last year, that would be ridiculous. Comeback division of all time,
or all 4 teams.
We have been talking about how there is a possibility that a full division makes it. Neither of us have ever thrown their name in the hat, so that's pretty interesting to think about. I didn't even think about that.
It's possible. It's very possible. But let's move on to the Cleveland Browns getting an upset over Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, 23-17 in an overtime victory. This is probably Jacoby Brissett's last starting game because they have a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson comes back next week. Hats off to Jacoby Brissett though. Hell of a run this year. I believe you could probably wind up on a team that needs a quarterback. Again, you'll be a backup, but you'll get some solid looks, I think.
Maybe Washington.
No, they have their guy. Maybe the Giants.
Maybe. But let's move on to another upset that I don't want to talk about. But the Ravens lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, 28-27. And my hat's off to Jacksonville because, man, that was a hard-fought win by Trevor Lawrence. He said, "I will not be denied." Zay Jones was the guy of the game. Like, he was Trevor Lawrence's favorite weapon. So shout out to Zay Jones. But, man, that's a rough loss by the Ravens.
It was a very rough loss. We watched that game together off air. You guys got some issues in the second half that you have to tune out.
I know exactly where it is too, and we'll talk more about it as the season goes on. Yeah. But man, I see it. I see the weakness, the kink in the armor. I see it. But
we'll get there.
We'll get there. Don't worry.
Down that road.
In 2 weeks, the Ravens and Steelers play. We're just gonna have a fantastic episode that week. But let's move on to a fantastic game to watch between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Seattle Seahawks. 40-34, Raiders coming away with the win. Josh Jacobs, unbelievable game.
Let that man eat. We've been saying it all season.
He reminds me of King Henry, man. He really does.
He's really disgusting.
Like him, Derrick Henry, and Nick Chubb are all in the same mold, and they're just the best running backs in the league right now. And there's a reason why. They're physical, hard-nosed, north-south running backs.
They're nasty.
But shout out to Josh Jacobs. Shout out to Derek Carr getting a win too.
But this is what we want to see from Vegas.
This is what they can be. Yeah,
we know this is what they can be, and it's upsetting when you see what they've given the first 2/3 of the season. Crap. Giving crap.
To think half their wins are wins over the Broncos.
No, it's ridiculous.
Oh man! But let's move on to a shutout. Actually, I don't think it's the first shutout of the year, but it's definitely one that we haven't had in a couple weeks. 49ers over the Saints, 13-0. Good win by the 49ers. But they have another tough test ahead of them against the Dolphins this upcoming week.
That's probably going to be their toughest. I believe it's going to be their toughest down the stretch of the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, same thing with Miami. It's going to be their single toughest all season going up against Kyle Shanahan at the second stretch.
We have a lot to talk about that game, but we'll get right into that. But let's move on to the Chargers and Cardinals. And the Chargers coming away doing what the Jacksonville Jaguars did and not going for the tie at the end, tying it up at the end, but going for a 2-point conversion instead of the PAT. Chargers won 25-24. Good win for them.
Good win for them, and it's really not a bad loss for Arizona. These two teams are very evenly matched. They're fun to watch when these two teams get together and go at it. This one also had a playoff feel to it, so this could be fun come, but maybe if Arizona somehow with a wing and a prayer that may be a playoff game. Maybe.
Not this year though, because it just looks like the NFC East is the team to beat, the whole division to beat.
It's true.
But the Cardinals have a tough road ahead of them if they want any aspiration to make the playoffs. But let's move on to a team that's guaranteed in the playoffs, and that's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs over the Los Angeles Rams. But this game wasn't even close. It was all Kansas City, 26-10. Mahomes having an MVP caliber year, but man, the Rams are just a shell of themselves this year.
Yeah, and pretty sure it was either during the game or during practice following the game. Aaron Donald is now hurt with a high ankle sprain.
I think that was during the game.
So their last piece is now hurt.
Yeah. Matt Stafford's not even playing.
Nope, maybe out for the rest of the year with a neck injury. Now him out for at least 4 weeks, so his season is perpetually done because he's on IR now. So good season, Rams. Look forward to seeing you next year. Maybe you'll be better.
Hopefully you can get some of them draft picks back. But let's move on to a really high-scoring game. The Sunday night primetime, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Green Bay Packers, 40-33, but it's rough for the Packers because all their best players are hurt now. Aaron Rodgers hurt, punctured ribs and broken ribs and a avulsion fracture on his throwing thumb.
Yes, and he's also currently being tested for a punctured lung. They had to go through tests to make sure that fracture didn't hit nothing. But what a game from Philly, man! They are tough. Super Bowl ready. Here they come.
They are scary. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs if I was any NFC team because
no way.
The playoffs are probably going to have to go through Philly, and I'm all for it right now.
I'm all for it.
But let's move on to the final game of the week. Your Pittsburgh Steelers getting it done over the Colts. It was a good win by the Steelers.
A much-needed win. It came down to experience as a head coach. Jeff Saturday, he had a little bit of a blunder when it came to a timeout being called. But all in all, for us, we had a great game offensively. Defensively, shout out Alex Highsmith. He's been a savage all year.
Mm-hmm.
And now that TJ Watt is there, it's such a compliment to have someone on the other side. Still have a couple of issues on our defense when it comes to our secondary and our middle linebacker core. But we'll get into that when the time comes.
Yeah. So we'll have plenty to talk about then. But that was this past week, and this was a fantastic week of football. But we have another fantastic week of football ahead of us, and every game is going to matter. We have a saying. We like to play a lot of sports games, and we have a saying where it's like the fourth quarter. That's when the game starts. And we're just entering the fourth quarter of the season right now. So this is when the season starts.
This is really it.
Every game matters at this point. Whether you're in the playoffs or not, every game is going to have an impact of how these playoffs are going to shape up. But let's start with two teams that are rolling so I'm looking too far ahead. Let's look with two teams that have aspirations for next year. And that's starting with the Cleveland Browns and taking on the Houston Texans. Now, we want to start with this game there's a number of reasons, but typically we haven't talked about the Texans at all this year.
No.
And so we like to talk about every team throughout the season. We may talk about some teams more than others, for those that have been watching, the teams that we like to talk about. But the Texans are a team that we wanted to wait for the right moment to talk about them. Because it's poetic that they're playing against their former quarterback in Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
And for those of you, for context, Deshaun Watson has not played for the Texans in almost 2 years.
So just a little over.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he refused to play last year for contractual purposes. So he purposely intended to sit out last year. This past offseason, he had all those sexual assault allegations against him, and what ultimately happened was the league determined we're going to give you an 11 game suspension. Um, they had an independent arbiter. They had to get a second independent arbiter. It was a whole ordeal, and I implore you to look up the details for yourself. But we're going to be talking about the football game this upcoming week. Deshaun Watson returning to play against the Texans in Houston. Looking at this game, for the players that are still remain on the Texans last year and even the year prior, like this was something that hung over your franchise, and you had to just kind of muster up, and the players that were on the field just had to play, knowing that they're not the guy who's supposed to be our leader is not our leader and doesn't want to be, and he doesn't want to be with us. And that feeling of like rejection for a team where it's like, man, like we did so good. We went to the playoffs a couple years ago. We had success. We had success as a team. And now their failure of a team is just collectively haunting the team itself, because they're going to have a total reset. Like they thought they had their future, their core with a couple years back when it was Deshaun Watson and D-Hop and even JJ when he was still there too. And they had a team. They had a solid core of players. And the future that they wanted to have turned to dust.
Yeah, it definitely unraveled a little bit for them, but that more so started when JJ Watt started getting hurt. He was on the field less often. DeAndre Hopkins, he was great. He was playing unbelievable.
Bill O'Brien made a dumb move to trade him to Arizona for a second-round pick.
Right, you don't do that. And that obviously that's going to impact the attitude of your star quarterback, because now, same thing with Aaron Rodgers, but it's kind of a similar situation where you just got rid of my one piece. Mm-hmm. How am I supposed to perform now? I don't want to play with these guys because you don't have the one guy I need anymore. Mm-hmm. So, no, I will not play for you. So, similar yet different situations.
Well, he set up specifically for money, for contraction.
Right, he wanted to be paid.
He just wanted more money.
He wanted to be paid.
And he just wanted that high-end extension. And not only did he get the extension, but the Browns added years to his contract when they offered him a contract this year after knowing about his sexual assault allegations, which went up to 24, and I believe he settled for 20. But he was getting $250 million guaranteed.
Right.
The Browns think they have a team ready to contend for a Super Bowl.
They don't.
They do not. And they even with Deshaun Watson, they do not.
No.
Not this year, not next year, not even the year after. Like the Browns are not set up to be contending teams and go up against the big dogs, not even within their own division. Right. They still have a hold over the Bengals for whatever reason, division rivalry and shit like that.
Whatever.
But when chips are on the table, they can't compete with the Ravens. They can't compete with the Steelers for playoff spots or the Bengals, because the Bengals will ultimately just have more wins than them, regardless. So even if the Browns do sweep the Bengals are still going to be playoff contending teams because they are set up to win offensively and defensively. The Browns are not. And their offense is specifically run through Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb at, what was it? I wrote it down. 1,039 yards with 12 touchdowns, and Kareem Hunt with 361 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Nick Chubb is having a phenomenal year, man. And he's one of the best running backs in the league. Him, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, those are all like the top tier running backs in the league. They're getting it done. And Nick Chubb is the Browns' best player.
100%.
I would argue that he's the best player. That's including he's better than Myles Garrett at their respective positions. I know Myles Garrett, he's a top end defensive, and it's again different offense and defense. But Myles Garrett is so talented. But Nick Chubb, man, he is special.
Nick Chubb
he
really
is so special. And even with Deshaun Watson coming back, they shouldn't lose sight of how great Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are because that running game is fierce.
It really is. It was one of the nastiest run games in the league. Remember last year I think they were number 1 for a very long time in rush offense.
Yeah, and then the Eagles surpassed them.
Because Jalen Hurts is ridiculous. But when it comes to this game in particular, the Texans have no defense when it comes to rush stop. Their defense is more in the secondary. And that, this is also a team that Deshaun Watson has never seen because of Lovie Smith. So this is going to be a completely different coordinated team with Houston. So there is a very slim chance, but there's a slim chance that the Texans come out with those veterans that you were talking about who were playing with Deshaun Watson, and now you were talking about how that feeling like it hurts. Pain is good in football. You use that, and you come out with a fire that people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it once or twice already in the Texans that there's something there ready to ignite when it comes to being one of those teams that we were talking about last year where they could just become an issue. They may miss the playoffs, but they may cause a playoff contending team to miss the playoffs because of a sick win.
They can play spoiler.
They can be the spoiler this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the Browns have aspirations to make the playoffs. Probably won't happen. The Texans, it's definitely not going to happen this year. But you look at their schedule, the Texans have a couple of playoff contenders in their midst on their schedule. I'm pretty sure. So they could just be that team, and this could be that spark to ignite that.
Mm-hmm.
So having no quarterback to go up against Deshaun Watson, that's an issue.
Yeah, because they're not even playing Davis Mills anymore.
Right.
I don't know who their quarterback is. Kyle Allen, I think. I don't know. But even Davis Mills, I know they wanted to buy into him. They're like, maybe there's something here.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there. And honestly, for the Texans, honestly, you should draft Caleb Williams from USC next year. If he's putting his name in the draft him because that's a quarterback that you can a team can buy into that.
Yeah.
A team can it's like, okay, look, we have the guy who we want to lead us for the next couple of years, who wants to be here and who wants to be a part of this team.
Exactly.
And I think that the Texans have to really do a job of finding out who wants to be there. Be like, hey, look, this is not going to be pretty the next couple of years.
But we will get it together.
We will get it together. And the Texans, man, they're one of those teams. They're one of those fresh expansion teams in the early 2000s. Like, they have not made a Super Bowl. They have not made a conference title game. They have not made it to the AFC conference game. But
I feel like that running back is on the Texans. His name defeats me right now.
Dameon Pierce.
Mm-hmm. That's a good piece to start with.
He's a good running back. He's a very underrated running back.
Very underrated young running back. So I feel like that's a good piece to go off of. And that's, again, when we look at the league, it's the run confident teams. I'm not going to say run heavy because you can have a good balance. The confident run game is what's going to have you succeed in this game. And Dameon Pierce will have you succeed in this game. Because just like on the Texans, the Browns have issues with their run stop too. Myles Garrett is in a league of his own on that Browns defense. Everyone else is a bunch of pedestrians. They really are. No one even really comes to mind other than Myles Garrett.
Well, they do have Denzel Ward as their cornerback. No, he's still good. He's still a very underrated cornerback in the league. I know they had John Johnson at safety because he came over from the Rams after their Super Bowl year. This offseason he went. They have a few players. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but the Browns have a tough time just com- when it comes to the elite offenses in the league. They just can't stop them. They're always going to be overpowered by better talent, and typically they are against better talent most of the time. However, in this game in particular, they do have the advantage a little bit. There's a lot of fresh young players on that team. A lot of backups playing right now. So they do have a good chance to win this game, but I think this is a game of emotion.
Yes.
And there's going to be a lot of emotion in this game because there's there's just a lot of emotion surrounding Deshaun Watson in particular. Like from the NFL, the Texans, the Browns, the fans.
You're right. The stadium's going to be completely in an uproar.
It's fitting that it's in Houston too.
It is very fitting.
It would be a different game if it was in Cleveland.
Yeah, it needs to be in, but this one needs to be in Houston though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it needs to happen here, and I feel like this could turn out to be a fist fight. It could really be turn into a fist fight.
Yeah, and I think both teams are going to just rely on their running games. Keep Deshaun Watson. Don't leave him out of it. Let him do a couple throws here and there. Again, a little reps to Amari Cooper, but you lean on Nick Chubb. You lean on Kareem Hunt, and for the Texans, you lean on Pierce. He is your best player on offense right now. So
Will Fuller's still hurt, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's still hurt. So he's out still.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm excited for this game.
This game could turn out to be exciting but low scoring.
Yeah,
you know. But the minute the Browns step away from that run game, it'll be their end. It doesn't matter who they play.
They're going to be in trouble. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Any final thoughts on this game?
No, just keep an eye out for Deshaun Watson. You know, maybe he'll have a big throwing game. You know,
I wouldn't expect
I wouldn't expect much to come out of him.
But this is a great game to watch. But another great game to watch, actually, that is the Titans and the Eagles. Much like this other game that we're talking about that's going to be run heavy, this game is going to be pretty run heavy too, because the Eagles last week against the Packers ran for 353 rushing yards as a team.
Ridiculous.
Jalen Hurts had 100 rushing yards in the first quarter alone.
That's absolutely blasphemous to think about. That a quarterback had 100 rushing yards in the first quarter. Do you remember a couple of years back when the Eagles didn't want to invest in this kid? That they were going to let this kid slip through their fingers, and now they're primed to win a Super Bowl right now? This game, it's funny to me that you can look at this game right now and you could say, that could be the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It just could be.
It very well could be, and it really depends on each team's matchups. The Eagles look to be the number one seed in the conference for the NFC. They look to just have where any team that wants to compete has to go through Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And that just may be the case, and I wouldn't be mad if they made it to the Super Bowl because that'd be so great to see. But the Titans, on the other hand, they're going to have a little bit tougher of a path because that's probably going to have to go through Kansas City.
That's right up Mike Vrabel's alley.
But you think about the game that they played earlier this year against the Chiefs. Mike Vrabel was coached and schemed a fantastic game against the Chiefs, and it took Mahomes to have a historic effort in order to win that game.
Right.
But Mike Vrabel, he knows how to call a game. He's like, look, hey, this game is going to be a punch in the mouth. Both teams are going to be running the ball. The Eagles do it differently than the Titans. The Titans run it typically through Derrick Henry, who's had a great year so far. He's got 1,048 yards and 10 touchdowns. So him and Nick Chubb are kind of right there at running backs.
They're same, like you were just saying. They're the same vein, same caliber of running back.
Yeah, they're molded from the same elk. Like they're just that good.
But then you look over on the Eagles side and you see Jalen Hurts, and he's doing things that it's like a combination. It's almost like a combination of Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson now, because he has the movement speed and the getaway of Michael Vick, but he has the arm strength of Lamar Jackson. You know, people not try to knock Lamar Jackson and say this man ain't a quarterback.
Oh, he's a quarterback.
He's got some wicked arm strength.
Mm-hmm. But you're right. Jalen Hurts has that arm strength.
He has that arm strength.
Yeah.
He can just let it go. And when you have the receiving core that you have with
AJ Brown
and
Devonta
Smith, you can. Those are two players that I trust those guys. If I just throw the ball up in their general vicinity, they're probably going to make a grab for it, and odds are they're going to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the Titans' secondary, that's going to cause a whole bunch of issues. Their secondary does not do well when it comes to a team that has more than one good receiver. So you have two stellar receivers coming into you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you're really going to have to buckle up on the pass rush side. But then again, you have the Eagles having a top 5 offensive line this year.
Shout out to Jason Kelce. He's having a phenomenal year. For number 62 on the Eagles, he's their center. He's the guy who snaps the ball every play. Him and Jalen Hurts touch the ball every play.
Yes.
On offense. And he's having a phenomenal year. And you can tell because they're running with ease. The holes are there. When teams are rushing 4 or 5 or even 6 on the Eagles, there's still running lanes available. And the Eagles, like we said, they run differently than the Titans. The Titans run through Derrick Henry. The Titans will go as far as Derrick Henry goes. But the Eagles do it by committee.
Right.
Leading with Jalen Hurts. He is definitely one of the best runners. But Miles Sanders, too. Miles Sanders
can't give up on him.
He's having a phenomenal year as well. As well as Boston Scott's having a great year.
I like Boston Scott. He's like a really good number 2.
And both Sanders and Scott can service as receiving backs as well. So when you talk about A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert,
Forgot about him.
Who's a great tight end, you also can have Sanders and Scott as 4 or 5 wide receivers. So the field is so open at every point, whenever you're trying to run it or pass it. And I got to give credit to Nick Sirianni. He is a phenomenal coach and having his best year as a coach. Be like, look, last year they had to ask themselves, what did we do good? What did we do as good as a team? We run the ball exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. They were the number 1 rushing team last year in the league. And I think they are leading the league in rushing again this year as well. 353 yards on the Packers. That is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. And that just shows issues in Green Bay. That really shows a lot of issues in Green Bay.
Man.
But when it comes to the Titans, man, I was just saying it. Mike Vrabel, he knows how to coach guys and they're going to put them through the worst possible outcome during the week. So when it comes to playing the game, it's really not going to be as hard of a contest as you would think. You know, it's going to be hard regardless. Again, this is a Super Bowl team versus a playoff team. So you're going to see the talent difference. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be the effort that you're going to see coming from the Titans that's really going to make your head spin. Mm-hmm. The effort that comes out of the Titans, it really makes people question what is a playoff team. Because you don't have to put the most points on the board. But if you fight on every step of the way, every snap, every play counts. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of teams in this league that take plays off. You cannot put the Titans in that caliber. Mm-hmm. They do not take a single play off, and sometimes the Eagles take plays off. So you take the wrong play off against the Titans, and that's where the change will happen.
Absolutely. And think about it like this. They forced Cincinnati to play all 4 quarters.
Right.
That it was a low-scoring affair, and the Titans said, no, we're going to play it how we want to play this game.
Correct.
We're going to put a suppressor on your receiving core, nothing over the top. If you're going to beat us, it's going to be on 8 to 9 to 10 play drives every time.
Every time.
And Kevin Byard is a big part of that. There's number 31, the safety for the Titans. He's a veteran leader, and he knows that, look, the deepest of the deep.
Always.
You got to be the widest of the wide and the deepest of the deep against any receiver. And the Eagles are going to test him. He's going to have his work cut out because it's like do you bite on A.J. Brown or you take Devonta Smith? Because the Eagles they're gonna push the long ball.
Yeah, they are.
They're not going to be afraid to question and challenge the Titans at their own game. So this game is going to be a playoff caliber. And hey, don't put it past it. This could be a Super Bowl matchup, but the Titans have a rough road ahead of them. The Eagles, they might have a rough road ahead of them, but it really depends in the following weeks against the Cowboys. We'll be talking about that game. Believe me, that's a game we're going to be talking about. But for now, the Eagles, they look great, and even though teams, their biggest weakness was exposed against Washington, where teams can run on the Eagles' defense.
Yes,
and the Titans are great. They're going to challenge the Eagles right back at them. Be like, hey, look, you like to run the ball, we like to run the ball. Let's run this fucking ball. And
let's see who stops it.
And let's see who stops it.
So, but the Eagles, remember, they beefed up that line.
That's true.
They beefed up that line. They got a couple of pieces, so you got to hope that cohesiveness forms on that front seven, and you guys can form a way to stop it. Because we've seen it time, and we've even spoken about it. The one way to stop Derrick Henry, hit him first.
Yep. At the line of scrimmage.
Hit him at the line of scrimmage, because the minute that man gets a beat of momentum, you're not going to touch him.
Exactly.
And as good as the Eagles are, he gets a beat of momentum, he is going to run all over you. All over you. But this game is going to be so much fun.
Oh, this game is going to be so fun to watch. But let's move on to another team that we actually have not talked about. The Green Bay Packers. Surprisingly, we have not talked about the Packers at all this season. And they're against the Bears this weekend. And you might be thinking, Packers, Bears, why even give this game the time of day? But
it's because of that reaction that it needs to be spoken about.
We need to talk about the Packers and just what is going on with them. Because the Bears, we can explain the Bears. And we've talked about the Bears, actually.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to explain.
It's a new coach, and they're trying to, kind of see what are the pieces around us. Knowing that, look, Justin Fields we can work around this guy. Much like Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Right. Once they finally start investing in quality players or like in the offense, they're going to win games. Defense, they're fine. They're just fundamentally fine on defense. They always buy into that Chicago mindset of
we're going to play you on defense.
We're going to play you on defense. So the Bears are good on defense. They got to beef up their offense. Darnell Mooney, their number one wide receiver, he's out for the year. So it's going to be Chase Claypool. Justin Fields, he may be playing this week, but as of this recording, it's nothing confirmed whether he's going to be playing or not. He has a separation in his shoulder.
Non-throwing shoulder, though, I believe, right?
He's non-throwing shoulder. So it could be either Justin Fields or Trevor Siemian starting this game. And for the Packers, it could be Aaron Rodgers or it could be Jordan Love. And I kind of want it to be Jordan Love.
Yeah, I think it's time to let him see, let the people see what Jordan Love can do. Shut Aaron Rodgers up, tell him to sit down, and let the kid play.
Because how injured is Rodgers? Because we mentioned it before, but
right as of right now, last week he was taken out of the game, and he told Matt LaFleur, the coach, "I think I punctured my lung." So he went and got X-rays. Turned out he has a fracture in his rib. He's been playing with a fractured thumb for about, I think it's 5 weeks. And you looked it up. It's called
a avulsion fracture.
A avulsion fracture, which is when the ligament is ripping and taking a piece of the bone with it. So that's a rough injury to have. And that's on his throwing hand. So the man is beaten up now. Now he is sustaining the injuries, kind of like what Ben Roethlisberger, the little ones. Mm-hmm. It's the little ones that are starting to linger that are going to hurt him more. It's the rib injuries. It's the fracture in the thumb. It's going to be a dislocation here. It's going to be a big bone bruise here. And they're going to accumulate till one huge injury happens and you're forced to leave without your own terms. Mm-hmm. And he's always clearly been about his own terms. But now the Packers need to really focus on the franchise. And you see that you have someone in the backfield waiting, and you're going to lose him by this year's end if you don't sign him again. So you have to understand this is the time to show, is he our guy, or do we need to go back to the draft board?
Yeah. They need to, because at the end of this year, they have to make a decision whether to re-sign Jordan Love or not.
Right.
How do you decide that when he's not playing meaningful games in the NFL?
Right.
You can't judge whether or not he's going to be on the team or stay on your team, even for as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, even all beaten up and stuff like that. Aaron Rodgers is there for at least 2 more years. They can trade him, but they're going to lose a lot of money.
That contract was such a joke.
Yeah, so he's getting paid $150 million guaranteed for 3 years. Ridiculous. But they also did sign Aaron Jones on a 5-year extension in the offseason. So, look, you're going to have Aaron Jones, and he needs to be the focal point of your offense. Yeah. Even with Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, you have to feature Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, too. There are 2 running backs for the Packers, and Aaron Jones is, like, he can be, like, there are games where he can just win you games by himself. We've seen that from the best of running backs, from Nick Chubb, from Josh Jacobs last week. Mm-hmm. We have seen Aaron Jones win games as a running back.
For sure.
And they need to feature him more in the offense because either Aaron Rodgers is going to be your injured quarterback for the next 2 years, or you're going to trade him and have Jordan Love start. Mm-hmm. And that's a great friend to have on the field. That's the best of friend. That's a best of friend to have on the field. But look, you gotta make the decision with Jordan Love. So against the Bears, like we were saying off air, this is a good test for them because we know exactly what Aaron Rodgers does to the Bears. He smacks them every time, and he owns the Bears. He's like 23-3 against the Bears or something like that. He owns them. He's part owner of Chicago, but. What can the kid do?
Right. That's the question that everyone needs to ask is what can the kid do? And, from thinking about these past couple of games, we kind of always figure out an ongoing theme here. I believe that this theme is invest in who you got.
Yeah.
You have to invest. Mm-hmm. Now you look at the Packers side of and the Bears. Bears need to invest in Justin Fields with an offensive line and a couple more pieces in the receiving corps. You flip the script over into Green Bay now. Who do they need to invest in? They need to invest in Aaron Jones. You need to invest in Aaron Jones. Get him a quarterback that can complement his game.
A quarterback and also some more wide receivers too.
Again, yeah. But they have Lazard.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to develop into
Christian Watson.
Lazard's going to turn into an impeccable receiver in time.
Romeo Doubs as well, but he's out for the year.
So get them a tight end and let Jordan Love play.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the reset. We're watching the reset of all the juggernauts of old in this league right now. Mm-hmm. What's happening? The Green Bay, the Pittsburgh, they're reset, big resets. Chicago, it's always good to see Chicago play well.
Mm-hmm.
They reset when they got rid of Matt Nagy.
Mm-hmm.
You see
Texans,
they reset.
Panthers,
they reset. The Eagles a couple of years ago, they reset. The Bills, they reset. They got a new offensive coordinator this year.
Yeah. Well, but they had their core guys. They had the core of the players that these are the players that if we're going to have success, run through them.
Correct.
And for all the teams that you mentioned too, they're probably going to be looking towards quarterbacks in the draft this upcoming year.
Other than the Bills, I said the Bills.
Other than the Bills and the Eagles, because those teams actually they drafted their quarterback a couple years ago. They got ahead of the curve,
right?
And we're going to draft our guy. This is who we're going to pick. Josh Allen in the first round for the Bills, and Jalen Hurts in the second round for the Eagles, and Jordan Love is a first round pick for the Packers, but he's literally just been sitting on the bench
he hasn't been doing anything.
Aaron Rodgers was like, "Well, you made me mad, and I'm going to have an MVP caliber year, but suck it, I'm going to have 2 MVP caliber years, and you got to pay me money, otherwise I'm walking."
Right.
But at that point, in hindsight, they should have let him walk.
And I said that when the whole thing started was that they should move on from him. You were on the other side of that coin where they were crazy for getting rid of him.
And
rightfully so. Yeah. I respected where you came from with that,
mm-hmm.
but now here it is imploding in Green Bay's face.
Yeah,
You know, it was regardless of him getting paid, or it wasn't about the money. It was about him making a point that I have this power, and now it bit the Packers because now they have someone who could be a diamond in the rough, but no one knows. He has no report card, and the little bit of games that he plays, it's in garbage time. So he's throwing an interception, and there's 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, low yards. So his QB rating is disgustingly low.
Mm-hmm.
But that's based on report card, and when all he gets is garbage time, you're going to have a garbage report card.
Yeah.
So you got to give him some quality minutes against a team that you know that you can outcoach, that you can probably beat, no matter who's playing in the helm. Let him go and play. Let him play with the young guys. Let's see what happens when you have a full core young offense on the field, because that is your future, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And you know what, Matt LaFleur, the coach for the Packers, he has to do a good job in, making a good game plan for the Packers, because they have had trouble scoring second half points in games, and that's been a huge detriment to them. That's why they can't score anything in the second half. That's why they're losing all these games. Yet somehow they were able to score some points in the second half against the Eagles. But typically, if you look at all the games and all the games that they've lost, they just have not done anything. They have a great script. When they go off script, they just can't do it.
Exactly it.
And when you go off script, you just give it to your best players. You give it to Aaron Jones. Give it to Aaron Jones.
You gotta feed that man. You know, and that's like that's really my final thought on this. Is like, you gotta feed your stars. And your star in Green Bay is Aaron Jones. Put Aaron Jones against that defensive front, and then you'll have a better time against Chicago if Jordan Love plays.
Oh, man,
but he should be playing.
Yeah. So I hope Jordan Love plays. Let Aaron Rodgers, you're hurt. Just call it for the year. Call it. That's fine. You're not a playoff team. That's fine.
What does it matter to you? Now you're playing in spite.
That's fine. So, look, I think the more Rodgers is forced on the field, whether by himself or whatever, or whether he says, I'm fine, I'll play, and stuff like that. Look, give it to Jordan Love. Let him play against these teams, get quality snaps, and who knows? You'll have the best information possible to make the best decision possible.
100%.
So, Packers, man, I'm surprised it took us this long to talk about it, but this is probably the right game to talk about them.
Yeah.
And for the Bears, you have a bright future ahead of you. For the Packers, we just can't say yet.
Right. We just have to figure it out.
So, with that being said, let's move on to probably the game of the week. Actually, this might be my game of the week. The Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers. Whoo, man.
Fireworks.
Do you want to start with this one?
Oh, I love this game. I love everything about this game. I love what's coming out of Miami. Tua is an absolute behemoth right now. He is having a stellar year. Let me throw something by you real quick. Since the whole concussion thing that since he got knocked unconscious, I'm going to put that one
in week 4 against the Bengals. Yeah.
No, against the Bills.
Oh, against the
he finished that game. He finished that game, and then the Thursday game against the Bengals, right?
Yeah.
When he went unconscious, he has thrown not one interception. He has thrown 10 touchdowns, and he has thrown for almost 1,300 passing yards. The kid
since
he's come back from being knocked unconscious, the kid is on a different level of caliber player right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Dolphins look like they can't be beat. This is going to be the single toughest test they have all year.
Well, it's the start of the toughest test for them this year, because they play the 49ers, they play the Bills, they play the Patriots in the last week of the season, and then they have another tough. And the Chargers.
They play the Chargers next week.
And they play the Chargers next week. So they have a gauntlet ahead of them. But this is the start of the tough road ahead of
I
them.
really think this is the most competitive game out of all of those games now, with the injuries and everything else accumulated.
I think if they win this game, this is the biggest confidence booster because San Francisco
100%.
is in talks to go make it to the Super Bowl again. I know we mentioned it last week as well after their big win over the Cardinals on Monday night, but San Francisco is a Super Bowl caliber team.
Yes.
Can you beat a Super Bowl caliber team?
That'll prove if you are a Super Bowl caliber team yourself or not.
Yep.
And that'll again, I love that Tua has silenced all of the naysayers.
I love it too.
I
man.
love it. Out of the gate, I said this kid was going to be a baller, but he's going to need a couple years. Here he is. This is year 3?
Yes.
Year 3. And he's already about to supersede? The numbers
Surpass
from last year.
Yeah.
From last year. So
yeah, he's just about to pass his. If he has, I think, 100 more yards, he'll pass his yardage that he's thrown last year. Last year he had 16 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. This year he has 19 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. And yes, he missed 3 games, but man, that's so good.
Such a good turnaround.
His comparison coming out of the draft was Drew Brees. And honestly, this looks like a Drew Brees style offense.
Yeah.
You have a short yet accurate quarterback that can distribute it to your incredible playmakers.
And he could just launch it down the field, man.
Shout out to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle because they are having an unbelievable year. Tyreek Hill with about 1,200 receiving yards and Jalen Waddle with 900. They're about to pass over 1,000 yards a pop.
A piece. It's ridiculous.
And Tyreek, he slowed down on his yardage a little bit, but man, he can crack 1,500.
If he cracks 1,500 yards this year, dude, that's ridiculous.
If he sniffs anywhere near 2,000 yards, he needs to be in serious MVP talks.
I agree with that.
And typically, if the MVP does not have to go to quarterbacks, in the last 10 years it has. But man,
he gets 2,000 yards receiving or anywhere close to it. I'm going to say put it in the range between 17 and 2,000. He gets 1,700 yards receiving, the conversation starts.
If he gets 18 closer to 19, I'm like, it's hard.
It's a hard bargain to not put him at MVP. He eclipses 2,000, and he's not MVP. There's a problem. There is a problem because he will go down as number 1, if not number 2 receiver all time for doing that. You know, that's an all-time season right there.
Yeah, because I think the record is Megatron with like, what was it, 1,900 yards and 1,937 yards.
Something like that.
In a 17-game season.
And I saw that.
Oh, no, sorry, in a 16-game season, but this is a 17-game season.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I saw like 2 or 3 weeks ago he's on pace to beat that.
He slowed down since then.
A little bit. But not much.
But man, it's going to be so great to watch this game because, okay, we've literally just been gushing about Tyreek Hill for the past couple, like 2 to 3 minutes. The San Francisco 49ers have the number 1 defense in the league.
Yes.
And
they have the single most versatile offense in the league.
Yeah, and oh my God. It's crazy to think about that the Dolphins are such a pass-heavy team, and they're so great at it too.
They still have Raheem Mostert.
And Raheem Mostert's good. They do have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson too.
Jeff Wilson,
former 49ers against the 49ers. But the 49ers are a run-centric team.
Yes, they are.
And they have great playmakers themselves as well. Brandon Ayuk. They don't pass it a lot, but when they do, Brandon Ayuk seems to just be open.
And then Deebo Samuel.
Deebo Samuel's a whole another animal.
George Kittle again.
George Kittle,
top 10 tight end in the league.
He is. He sacrificed yardage to just do a job, and like he's embraced blocking a lot. And
he's one of the best blockers in the league.
That's the thing too. Is like when you're watching a game, you don't necessarily. You see the whole cohesive unit blocking, the whole offensive line, but you may not know exactly who's doing what and who's supposed to be blocking their specific assignment. George Kittle has a great understanding of, look, we are a run-centric team. I need to block in the B or C gap, respectively, and sometimes the D, too. But I'm not gonna, and I'll get a couple balls thrown to me, but I need to block. I need to make sure that running lanes are open.
Right, he needs to be able to grab that outside and contain, like because when it comes to a defenseman and you're an outside edge rush, you usually line up on the inside shoulder of the furthest outside guy,
Mm-hmm.
which more or less is George Kittle. So when you do a contained, you go around his outside shoulder and then you work your way in.
Mm-hmm.
So his job as a tight end is he's supposed to get around you and block you inside, or that, or he's supposed to kick you out to the flats. And you watch him do it. He does it like a pulling tackle. And then, like you said, he also attacks the C gap or whatever because they run a, a lot of razor and lightning, where you watch 2, 3 guys on one side they pull, and then the other guys they come in from the back and they like create a wall,
Mm-hmm.
like backing up this way. It's really impressive to watch because that's some real tight fundamentals in the 49ers to do that successfully in a professional sense. To run razor lightning in a professional game is something that you don't really see in the league anymore. We're starting to see it more now with the spread offense coming back, the West Coast style plays coming out. You saw bits and pieces, and you're starting to see it more prominent now. Once Trey Lance comes back, it'll be really fun to watch. Remember, he's still hurt, and Jimmy G had to step back in.
Mm-hmm.
So once Trey Lance is healthy, that's going to be fun to watch.
That's the thing, too, is like they don't need, like, because I see what you're saying, too, where like Trey Lance comes in, that adds a dimension because you have your quarterback also a part of the running game. And it's crazy to think about is that would be open up their offense entirely. But they don't need that aspect of that game.
That's what makes them so scary.
That's what makes them so scary because it's much like the Eagles. It's running back by committee. You have a lot of different players playing a lot of different roles. You have Christian McCaffrey coming in, Elijah Mitchell, and also don't forget Deebo Samuel can also run it too.
Yes.
And
so can Brandon Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk can do it too. San Francisco they're kind of like positionless positions.
That's what I'm saying when I say they're the most versatile team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They have the most players on their offensive roster that can play multiple positions.
Yep.
You have 4 people that can actively play running back. You have a tight end that can go down and play fullback if needed because they still run fullback plays.
Mm-hmm.
You have halfbacks that can play receiver.
Yep.
So
you also have wide receivers that can play quarterback.
Right. You have Brandon Ayuk who
can you also have
60 yards.
Running backs like Christian McCaffrey that can also play quarterback.
He was an All-American in high school, All-American quarterback. So you never know what you're going to get. There could be a package that we haven't seen yet that has Christian McCaffrey as a quarterback.
I mean, he did it a couple weeks ago. I think it was against the Cardinals.
That's when he got a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, right?
And a receiving touchdown.
Yeah, that's right. He got a triple.
He got the triple.
That's right.
So, but the 49ers are getting healthy at the right time. But another just final thought on this one. This is also the Master Apprentice game.
Yes.
Because Mike McDaniels, the head coach for the Dolphins, was a coordinator under Kyle Shanahan in the 49ers. That's why their offenses are similar yet different. But they do have former 49ers players in Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson who understand the running schemes and the running concepts that the 49ers implement. So this game is going to be great. I'm so looking forward to this one.
I can't wait for this game. I agree with you. This is potential game of the week.
I mean, we might have another game of the week, though.
We might have a game of the year coming up.
Between the Chiefs and the Bengals.
Yeah.
The AFC Championship rematch of last year.
Possibly AFC Championship this year.
It's possible. So let's talk about this game.
All right, let's gear up.
Okay. I want to start by saying I respect the Bengals because they are a fierce team. They are such a fierce team. And it's crazy to think about that. What was it? We were talking about that Tyreek Hill should be getting consideration for the MVP. But at this point, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. He is having an MVP caliber year. He has 3,585 yards. What was it? 29 touchdowns. 29 touchdowns and 8 picks. He is, and that I didn't even write down his rushing yards. He's probably got a good amount of rushing yards too.
I could imagine him having those.
he's having a phenomenal year. But man, Joe Burrow is not far behind him. Like,
No.
he's got 3,160 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. So if Mahomes is like 1A,
Yeah,
Burrow's
is 1B.
is just 1B.
Yeah, no, this is gonna be a gun show throughout, you know, and now, but this is, if you think about this is almost like a tale of two quarterbacks. Now, hear me out. Mahomes had his piece and is still playing great. Burrow still has his piece with Jamar Chase.
And he's returning too.
And now he's returning this game, and I believe Joe Mixon might be.
Yes, they're both returning for this game.
So, what's going to happen in the event that Jamar Chase leaves Cincinnati in the future? That's the question that can really be started to ask.
Well, that's something way down the line.
That's something
yeah.
It's something at the very least 3 years down the line. Mm-hmm. I understand that. What I'm saying is, when it comes to mentality of player, are they on the same level? Stats-wise, they're close. They're close.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's, what type of player are you, Joe Burrow? Are you just the guy who has ice in your veins? Or are you the guy that can embrace something and move on as well?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you showed it for the past couple weeks. Without Jamar Chase, you're still playing very, very well. But he is still on your team. That's the difference.
Well, I mean, he, like you said before, he's coming back from injury. So let's see, in the games that he's been absent for this year,
mm-hmm.
the Bengals still have not missed a beat.
I agree.
And I think that I don't want to think about Jamar if he leaves and stuff like that, because he's there at least for another 1 to 2 more years. He's definitely going to be there next year, because that would be his 3rd year on his rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely going to be there at least 1 more year. But Bengals have to be smart about this. They can't, as much as you want to pay Joe Burrow good money, you see it a lot with all the other high-paid quarterbacks. You can't always keep the players that you want to keep because you're putting so much money into it. So Joe Burrow, his contract, I believe they're going to sign him at the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll probably get similar to Josh Allen's deal, where it's not the most highest paid, but still a good chunk of change, about like 180 something,
mm-hmm. or
like in total for like a 5-year span. I can see that with Joe Burrow, because I think he likes Cincinnati. For Jamar Chase, they should pay him too, but I want to see what he looks like coming back from this hip injury, because he's a big wide receiver that can get separation. How does he look post-injury? The Bengals, I don't think, as a team, they're not going to miss a beat. And even if Jamar doesn't have that extra step to his game, they still have Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Joe Mixon coming back as well. Oh, also they have Samaje Perine, who's probably just as good of a running back as Joe Mixon too.
That's a heavy one.
He is.
He's solid.
He is good. He's just not as athletic as Mixon.
Right.
But he's been a veteran for that team for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows. He had a 3-touchdown game a couple weeks ago against the Panthers.
So, wrong.
Oh no, sorry, it was after the Panthers they did it. But nevertheless, the Bengals are a great team, and they're a balanced team too. And now they're getting healthy at the right time, much like the 49ers too. They're getting healthy at the right time. The Chiefs, Juju's coming back for this game. They're getting a little bit healthier.
Hats off to Juju coming back, man.
Yes.
That was a lethal hit that he took a couple weeks back.
But man, even with him gone, the pickup of Kadarius Toney was a phenomenal pickup, because he looks rejuvenated as a player.
Yes,
he looks like the first overall pick that I thought he would be, or not the first round pick that I thought he would be for the Giants. But the Chiefs just like, look, we're gonna get you open, kid.
The Chiefs also just picked up a defenseman that was actually a Raven. I can't. Damn. They picked him up this morning. Actually, I saw it. Hold on, give me 1 second.
I mean, the Chiefs do need help on defense, but I will say Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, they look great on the defensive line. But their cornerbacks and safeties are very young. But
Brandon Williams.
Oh, whoa, Brandon Williams, really? Oh, yes. My God.
They picked up Brandon Williams.
He was a nose tackle that we had for a couple years.
So that's a very solid piece
put him in between Chris Jones and George Karlaftis.
Mm-hmm. Solid piece.
I think that's a great pickup.
That's a solid.
That's a great.
Solid piece.
Oh, he was on the free agency because we're past the trade deadline.
Yeah, they just picked him up.
Okay.
They put him on the practice squad.
Nice. So
it was either yesterday or today that I saw that.
Hey, that's great because hey, look, the Chiefs, they are Super Bowl contending team right now. To me, they just look like the best team in the AFC, and I feel that no matter, we've seen it so many times, down by 10, down by 14, down by 17, doesn't matter. They're still in the game.
Yeah, no, they are. They're always in the game, but so are the Bengals. That's the thing.
The Bengals are, and you look back at that AFC title game. They were down 21 to 3 at halftime, and then Bengals made the comeback.
Right. It's just, again, it's like these teams are so evenly matched when it comes to perseverance, strength, overall talent. This game, I can't wait for this game. I can't wait for this game. I hope everybody gets a chance to watch this game.
Surprisingly, that's not the Sunday night primetime, but that will be at 4:25. And I think a lot of
primetime game.
That should be primetime. But with that being said, man, we have so many great games ahead of us this week. But Chris Palma, are you ready to make some picks?
Yeah, let's make some picks for this week. This week's going to be exciting.
Okay, so let's start with the Thursday night game, the Buffalo Bills against the New England Patriots. Woo! Tell me who you got.
I'm going to go Buffalo. But again, got to keep an eye out for Josh Allen, man. That not having that long ball is really going to hurt him.
Yeah, and Belichick knows how to coach against Josh Allen too. But I'm going to go with Buffalo. I'm not going to overthink this one. They are still a great team, both offensively and defensively. And if Buffalo can get a lead and outscore New England and really take them out of the game early. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with Buffalo, but I think this is going to be a lot closer of a game than people might think. So let's move on to your Pittsburgh Steelers against the Atlanta Falcons.
Who you got?
I'm going to go with Atlanta on this one. I just still like the way they play. I will say, though, the Steelers do have a good future ahead of them after that Colts game. But for the season, it's going to be a long season.
Well, yeah, the season's not going to get any easier anytime soon. But I'm going with Pittsburgh, of course. But I saw a lot of improvement against the Colts, and I've seen a lot of improvement since Week 9. Mm-hmm. Since Week 9, our bye week, we are the 4th best running team in the league. Alex Highsmith is one of the best defensemen in the league right now. Mm-hmm. TJ Watt, he's out. He's been out with injury, but he's still a menace to society. Mm-hmm. Our secondary needs help, but we still have Cam Sutton. I still like to watch. I don't like Weatherspoon, but he's still hurt. Our offensive line is getting healthy at the right time, and Pickett to Pickens is going to be one of the nastiest combos come next year. I can promise you that.
That is true. Yep. Pickett to Pickens, we're going to hear a lot of that.
Yeah, we are.
So let's move on to probably an entertaining game that we didn't really talk about, but the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions, the Cats.
Yeah, Battle of the Cats. Who you got?
I'm gonna go with Jacksonville. Their win against us last week really impressed me. I hope that flipped the switch for Trevor Lawrence because he looked really good. But this is going to be a close game, an entertaining game. But I liked what I saw from the Lions last week too.
Yeah, both of these teams are exciting, but I'm going to go with Jacksonville. It was more of a convincing win. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to go with Jackson with you. Cleveland and Houston.
Before this podcast, I was thinking Houston, but thinking about how good Nick Chubb is, and just after talking about it, I'm going to go with the Browns. I don't want to go with the Browns, but I really think this game is going to rest on the shoulders of Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. The Browns are probably going to win this one, and only because they're the more consistent team. Cleveland can consistently win games now. They can win games. Houston hasn't proven that yet. Mm-hmm. They can consistently win games, especially when they matter. So I'm going to give Cleveland this one, but I feel like Houston could come out with a little bit of a spark. Denver and Baltimore.
I'm going to go with my Ravens, but man, this is going to be an ugly game. I just see it. I just see it happening, but I'm going to go with the Ravens. Don't you do it. Just think of how bad the Broncos have been this year. Russell Wilson has more bathrooms in his house than touchdowns.
That's a disgusting stat.
He's got 12 bathrooms in his house. 8 touchdowns.
I'm going to go with Baltimore this week.
Oh, this week.
But if you guys don't beat Denver, boy, do we have a conversation to have next week.
Oh, believe me, we already have that conversation.
Oh, my God. I can't believe I just voted Baltimore to win this game. Green Bay and Chicago.
I'm going to go with the Packers. Lean on Aaron Jones. Much like with Deshaun Watson. Lean on your running game. Let's see what Jordan Love can do.
I'm going to go with Chicago. Hoping that Justin Fields plays. If he doesn't, they're going to go with Simeon. But on the same level, focus on your run game. David Montgomery, let him run. Cole Kmet, he's having a really good past couple weeks. So focus on what works and try and get it done. This game could be exciting. Jets in Minnesota.
I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm going to go with Minnesota. I think they're still the better team than the Jets, but Mike White's got a little magic in him right now. So
I'm going to go with Minnesota as well. But, if the Jets beat Minnesota, they're kind of putting their foot down and saying we're a playoff team. So this game has a lot of meaning to it. Tennessee and Philly.
I'm going to go with Tennessee for this game. I do like Philly. Don't get me wrong. I love Philly. But when I really think about it, Mike Vrabel has forced a lot of close games, especially in recent weeks, against some really great offenses. Both teams have the similar weakness where teams can run on them, but they can run just as well. I'm going to go with King Henry and the Titans for this game.
I want to, but the Eagles look damn near unbeatable. They really do. And the Titans, they have a lot more issues than the Eagles do. Mm-hmm. I like Mike Vrabel as a coach. I'm all in on Derrick Henry. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are on a different. They're just on a different level.
That's how good I know the Eagles are because I can see that in your eye. You want to take the Titans on this one.
I want to take the Titans, but it's like.
But do you think this is going to be a low-scoring game?
No.
You think this is a high-scoring game?
I think it could turn either way.
Okay.
If both sides running backs go off, it's going to become a 40-50 point game. Like a 30-20. Something like that. Something along those lines. It's going to be a 2-possession game at the end of it, though. Some team is going to win by 2 possessions.
Someone's going to separate.
Correct. Washington and the Giants.
I'm going to go with Washington. I'm sorry, Giants fans. Washington just looks better under Taylor Heineke.
Yes, they do. That's a team that has a little bit of magic in them when it comes to their backup, Taylor Heineke. And it's funny that Washington had magic with their other one, with Fitzpatrick, when he was their backup too. They're like the land of the backups. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm going to go with Washington as well. Miami and San Francisco. The time has come.
I'm torn. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Miami.
Okay.
But I'm so excited for this game.
I want to watch this game start to finish. I'm going to take San Francisco. I just think when it comes to, in the grand scheme of things, when typically we've seen master and apprentice go against the master wins. I think that Mike McDaniels has learned a lot under Kyle Shanahan. But Kyle Shanahan still has a lot up his sleeve.
I agree.
He knows what he's doing. So I'm going to take the 49ers on the T. I'm sorry.
Seattle and the Rams. Ugly game.
I'm going to take Seattle. But the Rams, I think this is a divisional game where anything can happen. Even as hurt as the Rams are, they might shock the Seahawks and stay in this game. But I'm going to take the Seahawks.
I'm going to take the Seahawks for the simple reason of no Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
They don't have their ace in the hole. You know, if they aren't putting up points, at least they used to be able to rely on him messing up a play.
And also, Jalen Ramsey's having his worst year as a cornerback.
Jalen Ramsey's done.
He's getting smoked every game.
He's done. He's absolutely done. Chargers and the Raiders. Last year, this was game of the year.
I know. That's the sad part.
The sad, especially this time of year.
Who you got? I see it. I see it, folks. He's doing it. He's doing it.
With the Chargers. I'm not doing
what?
it.
Oh, I'm surprised.
I'm not doing it. I told you I have no inclination to fucking go for them anymore.
I thought you were gonna do it. I
want to, but they hurt me. They hurt me a lot.
It hurts,
and especially because the Chargers have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. That run game is going to struggle because of that lack of an offensive line. Chargers are the better team on paper right now.
Josh Jacobs is getting hot at the right time. Devontae can still have a ridiculous game. I'm going to go with the I'm going with the Chargers.
Oh, shit.
Because as great as the Raiders have played, especially last week, we have not seen that consistently throughout the year.
Right, it's consistency.
We see how good they can be, but it's not consistent. And I'm going to go with the Chargers because at least they're consistently competitive in games.
Chiefs and Bengals, game of the week.
Between this and Miami, this is going to be a great one. I'm going with Kansas City. I just have more faith in the Chiefs. Coaching, their offense.
So you're going with Cincy?
I'm going with the Chiefs.
Okay.
Who you got? You go with Cincy?
Why would I fucking ever vote? Fuck the Bengals.
Okay, thank you. You scared me for a second.
No, because you said I'm going to go with the Chiefs, and then you said I feel KC. Or you said something that almost made me feel like you were voting.
No. I think on the advantage, I think the Chiefs have the coaching advantage. They have the offensive advantage because Mahomes is on another caliber. Him and Kelsey are just ridiculous together.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are this is going to be a high scoring game. Yeah, this is going to be a really high scoring game.
This is going to be like an 80-point game.
Yeah,
it's like the first one to 40 wins.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Indy and Dallas.
I'm going to go with Dallas. Indy should be in this primetime game, but I'm going to go with Dallas, and they might make a statement. I really think they might make a statement.
Dallas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they could definitely. This is like a foot to throat type of game. You know, almost like last week where it's just Indy is not the better team. They just don't belong on the field right now. They are not playing well. They are not performing well. Dallas all the way. And then Monday, it's kind of a coin flip. New Orleans and Tampa.
Oh, man, I really don't know what to expect for this game.
I expect some uglies coming out of this game. What do you got?
I'm going to go with New Orleans on this one. For some reason, it took a Jameis Winston pick six and Mike Evans to throw hands to Marshawn Lattimore for the Bucs to win earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen as of late that the Saints can score points. But we also saw last week that they can't score points. So I really don't know what to expect for the Saints. It's like you said, it's a coin flip. I'll take the Saints.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Saints too. I don't like the way Tampa is playing. They are not playing well, and it's almost pretty tragic that they still could wind up in the playoffs because they're just going to win their division.
They could be 8-9 and still win.
The fact that entire division is negative right now is insanity to me. It's absolute insanity to me. But, I got New Orleans on this one all the way.
Okay.
So, there you have it, guys. There's our picks for the week. Got a couple exciting games that we just spoke about. We have a very exciting week. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. We are very excited for this week. If you are interested in going for an interview, please inbox either myself or John for your inbox as your email, and we will set something up as soon as we can.
Hey, we love to talk to you. We love to get your thoughts on what's going on in the season. Tell us about your team. Tell us about what you want to talk about, because there's so much to talk about, and it starts with this upcoming week of football.
Yeah, can't wait. Hope you're ready because we're excited.
We'll catch you next week.
Catch you next week.